Welcome, friends. My name is Vijay Kumar. I'm the Dean of Penn Engineering, and I'm your host of Penn Engineering's Innovation and Impact podcast. Our podcast shares insights from some of the leading experts from around the world who bring to you the latest breakthroughs and innovations in science, technology, and medicine. Today, we're honored to sit down with Benedetto Vigna. Benedetto is the Chief Executive Officer of Ferrari, where he's leading the company through the addition of electrification and digital innovation while preserving its legacy of performance and craftsmanship. Trained in subnuclear physics at the University of Pisa, he began his career in research before joining ST Microelectronics, where he helped pioneer microelectrical mechanical systems, or MEMS, including the development of the three-axis accelerometer, now widely used in consumer technology. With more than 200 patents and decades of innovation experience, Benedetto brings a rare combination of scientific depth and visionary leadership to Ferrari's future. Benedetto, thank you so much for joining us. I want to start with your career. You started as a physicist, and maybe you could take us back to when you started as a student at the University of Pisa.
Thank you, Vijay, for this invitation. I'm very happy to be here. Yes, I started, 35 years ago. I started as a physicist, studying physics. When I finished, I want to do something different. I want to apply what I learned at university to create some product, to create a business and thus some workplaces. So I felt this need to do something new. And so I used what I studied at university first to make a new product, all the sensors that now you have in the mobile phone, for example, in the cars, in many other places, also washing machine. But then also now in the role I have, having studied physics, it helps me to understand what it makes sense to put or not in the car for the next generation.
But you did some early work in developing the three-axis accelerometers. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
You studied very well. Now, you know, at that time, we want to do something new in the field of sensors. There were one axis and two axis accelerometers. The accelerometer were expensive, bulky, and power hungry. So we said we need to make something new that is small at the right price. So we get out with this idea of a three-axis accelerometer in one single package, because many people could use it and they could position on the board without any too complicated assembly. So it was a good point.
So, but I think the impact of that invention has gone well beyond cars to, I know in my own work, we use it to fly drones autonomously. And of course, smartwatches, smartphones, it's everywhere. So, did you expect the impact to be that large?
No, we had an idea because we are Italian. When we speak, we use hands. So the idea was how to use the motion to interact with object. So we had an idea about the games, about the mobile phone. But then all the other applications, like the one you mentioned, it came out. Consider that also, for example, in Ferrari, there are also three-axis accelerometer. For sure, I was not thinking about using three-axis accelerometer in a car, in a Ferrari, for what we do.
So you did a lot of work in MEMS, microelectromechanical systems. So from semiconductors to and MEMS, you went to Ferrari.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
It happens because, when the board was searching for a person that was acquainted with innovation, with new technology, with, let's say, entrepreneurial approach. I mean, they approached me, and I was more than happy to work for a company that is an icon of in the world, that is putting together the beauty of the design, the uniqueness of craftsmanship, and the uniqueness also of performances with the people at the center. So that's the way it happened.
So as you think about innovation in the context of Ferrari, what's the biggest thing that's happening today?
Today, the biggest thing for sure is something that you are going to see in a few weeks. Okay? By 25th of May, finally, the entire world, will see Ferrari Luce. Ferrari Luce is the first car with electric traction that we are going to unveil in Rome. So that is a big step forward in innovation, but we have many other things that also will came already and will come in the near future.
That was a big step, and maybe our listeners would love to hear why you embarked on that journey, because it's hard for me to imagine a Ferrari with a fully electric powertrain.
But look, Ferrari Luce, I like to say that is also electric. First of all, it's a Ferrari, then it has electric traction, but then there are many other things that make this car really unique. So it's not only an electric car, but it's also electric. Now, the point is that when you do innovation, you have to be really open-minded. And if you want to be a leader, if you want to continue to be a leader, you have to dare. Because if you do not dare, if you are scared about using new technologies, I don't think you deserve to be called a leader. And I think this is coherent with our purpose, the purpose of our company. That is, we audaciously redefine the limit of possible. This is key. We cannot retreat in the existing and comfortable world we know. We need to dare. We need to go beyond. We need to redefine the limit of possible.
In our earlier conversation, you spoke about the values of the company and how you always trying to find innovation that's consistent with the values of Ferrari. Could you say a little bit more about this and contrast that with some of the tech companies that we see today?
But look, in a tech company, usually the past is not so relevant. The people care about the future. I was working for an high-tech company, and I never had to study the past history of that company. I am in Ferrari since 4 years and a half. I had to study a lot the history of this company. I know a little bit more because the history is very rich. And I think it's important to put these two things together, the tradition and innovation. In a few weeks after Ferrari Luce, you will see something that, if you want, it's a representation of what the merge of these two dimensions can give to the client. The merge of tradition and innovation can deliver something unique to the client. This is one important value for our company. And this is also what I'm telling all the team. We have two eyes, the past and the future. We have to look at the past, we have to look at the future, and one brain to put them together in a unique way.
I know you think a lot about climate change and sustainability. Tell us how that works into Ferrari's values.
Sustainability is important, very, very important for us. Since I stepped in the company, I pushed a lot on sustainability. We have been working on sustainability on different dimensions. One, we have been reducing the waste of aluminum. We have been optimizing the use of energy by optimizing the melting temperature of the aluminum, to be more specific. We have been installing in the company solar panel as well as fuel cell. And if you come in Maranello, you talk to our engineers, when we select a supplier, we look also at their carbon footprint. So it's very important. And the engineers know what is the carbon footprint of all the metal, for example, all the material that we use to make our car. Call it plastic, call it silicon, call it metal. We know that. I am very pleased when I see the people, the engineers, mastering this dimension very quickly. Now we have a clear target. By end of this decade, we will emit only 10% of what we were emitting in 2021, and we will cut the emission 20-25% in absolute term. So this is a strong commitment. We believe in it, and we are working on it.
That's excellent. That's excellent. So again, this is a company with a long history, and it's a luxury brand. And I imagine innovating in a company with history is harder than a company that's just started, like the tech companies. I just wonder how you instill the values, make sure the values are still the values of old, while you proceed along the path of innovation.
Look, I think each company has its own challenge. I think the startup has some challenge. A company like us with a strong brand has some challenge. Yes, sometimes when the company has a strong brand, may be a little bit more difficult. But if you work a little bit more open-minded, you can go and check in the pot of what you have a lot of ideas you can take and rethink.
Uh-huh.
So this is an important point. I think that really I have in mind different things that we did already and other things we are working on that without the history, without this big reservoir of ideas that is there, would not be possible.
I love the analogy you gave with the nut.
Yeah.
Maybe you could just talk about that briefly.
Yeah, when I think about a company, okay, I think a company like a nut. So there is a nutshell, then there is what you eat, and then there is the space, the interface between the two. The nut itself are the values of the companies. It's tradition innovation is a strong value for us. The shell is represents the brand, the trust there is between the company and the client. Thicker is the nut shell, thicker and stronger is the brand. Who has to work to make sure that the nutshell stays with the same thickness or increases the thickness, does not deteriorate over time? Are the people like me, the people like all the colleagues in Ferrari, but also all the guardian of the brand. We have to work to make sure that over time the thickness of the nutshell is growing, is not reducing. This is the way I envision our company. There is the values, the people, and then there is the brand.
And which part do you work the most on?
I have to work a little bit on the different dimension, but for me, is to work with other people to make sure that the values are protected and are reflected in the brand. I am a guardian of the brand, like all other people in the company. Each one of us has to contribute to make sure that the thickness of this nutshell becomes thicker and thicker.
At Penn, we train engineers to be well-rounded. We want to make sure that they appreciate the importance of engineering in society. And so our mission is to give them this well-rounded education, and we think of it as engineering in a liberal arts setting.
Mm.
I wonder how that resonates with some of the things that you think about at Ferrari.
It resonates very much, Vijay. I think that you have to put together with a strong, engineering background. If you study STEM, I think you put together also the importance of social science. I couldn't, when I studied, I did not have this opportunity, so I had to focus only on physics. But let's say when you have the opportunity to develop both sides of your brain, let me say, the rational one and also the emotional one,
Correct.
I think is important to be a well-rounded person. I like to say in this way that if you study the two things, you are more like a sphere. So you are more well-rounded than an ellipsoid. I think that this is so maybe I envy that I could not study here when I studied, but time goes.
That's good. We should educate spheres, so we want to make sure of that.
Yeah.
So we talked about what students should learn. As you know, there's a lot of uncertainty entering into the workforce today. So, what advice would you give students who are just entering the workforce?
For sure, there are a lot of challenge, but the point is, are these challenge or opportunities? I think this is an opportunity. I think this is a unique moment where I think AI can be read not as a simple artificial intelligence, but can be read like accelerated innovation. I think that it's a little bit like the old times when you had the slide rule to make a calculation. We got rid of it. We use a calculator. Now it's time to use other tools. So AI is a tool that the people, we all need to master, to understand, to master, so that we can be more innovative, more creative, and we can do things that the previous generation was not able to do. So that's the way I see. It's a big opportunity that can help us to address problems, to find the problems that without it we couldn't define and find before.
I love the your interpretation of AI as an accelerator of innovation. Um, and I sense that you're an optimist when you think about technologies and the challenges we face. Is there something that keeps you awake at night? Something that you worry about?
But look, is a technology, like all the technology, must be used in the right way. I mean, the technology is not good or bad per se. It's the use you do of it that can become good or bad. And what you are saying, what if years you are forming, preparing well-rounded citizen, because that's what we are talking about. I'm sure that these people will make good use of AI. Is when you have too many ellipsoid in the society that you run the risk to make a bad use of new technologies. So the spheres, because the spheres put at the center the human beings, the mankind. And these are the people that I think your university can contribute to create and what we need in the society.
I think that geometric picture just reinforces the conviction I have. So spheres it is. So thank you for that. Benedetto, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule for joining us today.
Thank you, Vijay, and come to see us in Maranello.
The future of Ferrari is bright, and it's been inspiring to hear your insights as a leader of innovation. For our listeners, please subscribe to Penn Engineering's Innovation Impact podcast series on your favorite podcast platform and watch a video of this recording on Penn Engineering's YouTube channel. We'll see you next time.